Okay, our interview this afternoon for 100 Years of Coolness TV is with Dave Stringer. Dave, it's great to speak to you and thank you very much for having us.
My pleasure, no problem.
Lots of stories to come, I imagine, and it's your life, so you tell us what you want us to know, and keep quiet what you don't want anyone else to know. Dave, tell us when you were born and where you were born, please.
I was born in Great Yarmouth, 1944, 15th of October, and I lived in Southtown in Great Yarmouth, and that's where I was brought up. Went to the Edward Worley School later on, and met up with people like Mike Bailey, who was England and Wolves footballer. And you know, we really, that's all we did in those days, was play football. You know, and the majority of the boys around that area, and of course the schools in the town at that time, had good teams and good players that were in them. And we had particularly a good bunch of boys coming out at that time who did make it into professional football. I did manage to look at your site overnight, and I did look at Brian Boggis's recollections of that time. And he rightly said, you know, we went, as I say, I went with Mike Bailey to the Edward Worley School. He was a year or two ahead. He was in my brother's class at the school. And watching him go to the Oldham Leach School at that time, and seeing the teams that they were turning out and the teams that they were playing, I thought, well, that's where I want to go. Regardless of grammar schools and things like this, an academic career, I wanted a sporting football career. And you know, I met up with people there that I played against in the primary schools, and one of them was Peter Simpson, who went to Arsenal.
He did indeed.
And played in the double winning side, the first double winning side for Arsenal. In fact, I went on a trial for Arsenal at the same time as he did, and he was taken on naturally because he was such a good player. And I was asked to go. I wasn't very big at that time, and I was playing in a forward position, and probably, you know, at that time I was not big enough or good enough to go into professional football, so they said to me to try at a different level, to, you know, maybe drop down a level and have a go there. This was when I left school, but that didn't happen immediately, because I played for Galston Football Club, where a lot of the boys turned up and ended up playing. And that was when I was about 16. I was playing for their first team at that time. And while I was there, I was asked if I would play for a Norwich City B team. They used to play three teams. They used to play Norwich first team, obviously in reserves. Then they had a B team that played in local leagues, where young players played and try their skills to try and get through into the first team. Or to turn professional, which is our main objective and main goal. I was toiling away in there for a while, and I was lucky enough to play for the county and then get picked for England Youth. And when I was picked by England Youth, Ron Atkinson, who was the manager of Norwich then, decided that he would like to invite me to sign as professional, which I took my father with me to negotiate my contract. I was in engineering then. By that time I'd doing apprenticeship in engineering, and I went along with my father. My father was a shipwright. We worked on the shipyards in Yarmouth, and he spoke to the manager, and he said to me, I'll offer you £12 a week. And my father said, this is in 1963. He said, no, I said, he can get more than that, he's unprofessional. He was lying through his teeth, wasn't he? And Ron said, well, what I'll do, I'll offer you £15, and I'll offer you £7.10 appearance money when you play in the first team. So I nearly snapped his hand off, you know, it was such, because my father was earning as a tradesman at that time. He was earning £12 a week, and I was going to be earning more than my father, and I was, what, 17, 18 years of age. So I signed for Norwich, and I spent, I'm sort of brushing over it a bit, but I spent 2 years in the reserve team, looking for my opportunity to go in and try and hand in the first team.
Yeah.
And unfortunate for some players, they get injured, and fortunate for others who want to come in, they get their opportunity, which happened to me. And Phil Kelly, who injured his knee at that time, and that actually finished him in football, allowed me the opportunity to play in the first team. And I had a debut at Coventry City, which wasn't the best of debuts because we lost 3-0. And I can remember playing against John Mitten, who was Charlie Mitten's son, who's quite a famous name at that time. And I think he must have run me ragged that afternoon, but that was a process of learning, because you know, you're more aware of things around you when you first start in football, rather than concentrate on the game itself. I was really more aware of the event and the occasion. That was at the end of one season, and so I played a couple of games, and then the following season I was given the opportunity again to start, which I did. And it took them 13 seasons to get me out from there on, because I you know, stuck at my job and kept in my position.
So what position were you playing then?
I was playing right back at that time,
right.
And I'd converted back from the centre forward position into the defending position, which probably I found more easier for me to handle. And I felt as though I sort of took to it, you know, like a duck to water, because that was probably what I should have done in the first place, is play in a defensive position. But when you start as a youngster, everyone wants to play up front, everyone wants to be a centre forward or an inside forward as it was then, scoring goals. But then I had to build a career, which meant that you had to be a different type of player. That meant you had to be a bit more disciplined than a forward has to create. You have to stop people creating, so you fall into that category, and you have to be disciplined. But over those years, I played several games up till I was 28 years of age, which was the time really that I was enjoying the football, but not achieving as much as I would want to achieve. As a personal ambition, I wanted to do well, I wanted to go forward. We were playing the second division then, and I wanted to go to, play higher up in the top division. And at 28, a manager came to Norwich, Ron Saunders, who was a very tough disciplinarian, who brought in my view, brought the club round by the fact that he grabbed it by the bootlaces and said, "Look, come on, you know, he wouldn't take any messing with anybody. They had to do their job or they were out," you know, and that suited me because I understood that. You know, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to see the club go forward, and he, in 3 seasons, got the club round and got the team together to go for promotion, which we did, and we got the championship in 1972-73. We won the championship, which I was fortunate enough to score the goal that actually gave us the championship, and that was one of the highlights of my career at Norwich. But then,
do you know how many games you played for Norwich?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
So 499, can you believe? I did get the 500, but somebody has since told me that there are a few games that got missing along the way, so I'm saying 500, but that was 499 officially.
Yeah.
And that, it led to us playing in the first division, being an underdog in the first division and playing some great games. And in that era too, we went to 2 finals, the League Cup, and to a semi-final in between. So we had 3 years where we went to a final, semi-final, final. And it was really good years because we were, in that time as well, we stayed in the first division our first year, and again I scored the goal that kept us in, would you believe, and that seemed to follow on and give me a great amount of enjoyment for doing that.
It was a 1-1 draw with Crystal Palace.
It was, yes, yeah, 2-1 we won.
You did?
Yeah, we did, yes.
Okay.
It was, I think the game went 1-1 through, and then we went to 2-1. But then from then on in, I think we got relegated, and Ron Saunders was given the inevitable, the sack, and they brought John Bond into Norwich, who was a different person altogether in the way that he approached the game. He was a more of a flair person, football, more outspoken in what you know, when he dealt with the press, everything else. And they would say that, you know, he was more charismatic than Ron, but you know, as I said before, Ron suited me because he was no nonsense, he got on with it. I thought John was a bit airy-fairy at times in what he did and how he approached the press and talked to people and made a lot of claims that I thought would be difficult to fulfil.
Did you learn from these managers?
Yes, I did.
Even is it osmosis? Did you just go in?
I think that is it. You know, if you see how these, you know, how they operated, in fact, I would say that if you looked at both of them, if you could take a bit from both of them, it would make the perfect manager, because you know they both had, you know, extreme sides of the coin, if you like. One was all flair and flamboyance, and Ron was the opposite. If you could hit that happy medium in the middle, then I thought that's the way to go. But I always thought that players should be allowed to play, which I think that's what you know, was happening when we played at Norwich with John Bond. They allowed us to play and try and express themselves, but Ron had more of a structured system where he kept it. Everybody knew the job. You trained during the week, you knew what you're doing in training, and it was all geared to the way that we played on the Saturday. Whereas you had individuals in the teams that John had that were good players in their own right, and they had that flair in amongst that organisation. But he had the luxury of having the players that were left over for Ron, who were very, shall I say, disciplined in what they did, which allowed the players who were those flair players to play, because they could fall back on us if they needed that little rock solid foundation to play from.
We've got the situation in Cambridge just now, just very quickly, that the manager's just changed, and if the manager's changed one thing about the game, he seems to have said to the players, "You're in one of the best professions you could ever be in. You're having the time of your life. Get out there and enjoy yourself."
Enjoy it, yes, that's it, exactly right. You know, but it's all about, you do have to have discipline, you know, in the play, you know, then everybody has order, everyone knows what they're doing on the pitch. But that's when the opposition's got the ball. That's when you have to be solid, you have to be strong, and you have to stop them playing. Once you play, nobody can tell any individual what they should do, because everything's different. It's just presented to each player that plays on the pitch. So they have to use their own intelligence to play. And that's what, you know, I always felt with my teams that I put out.
Did you naturally come through? Did your skill take you naturally through the divisions as you played on through your career? Or do you think you learned?
I think we learned, but I think you learn that each division is different. You know, if I go on to say that, you know, having played for John and we had promotion, we had another League Cup final, and we had some good runs, but there came to a point I was getting a little bit older then, and I was at 30 and 31, and this is when the opportunity arose, and I felt I was then becoming like in the side, out of the side, rather than you know, amazed. I wanted to play every week, and that was part of my I suppose makeup. If I was at the side for any length of time, that concerned me. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to go and play in the first team and be in amongst it. And this is when I remember Ron Atkinson coming to watch us training at Norwich, and he was invited there by John Bond to watch us training. Little did I know, he's probably watching me in training. And they came to me, John and Ken Brown. Ken Brown said, Ron Atkinson is interested in you going to Cambridge. What do you think? Well, at that time I thought, well, I want to play every week. I've come to the end of my playing day with Norwich. I can see that happening. And I wanted to play regularly, so I thought I'd go down and have a chat and see what happened, which I did. And I decided to sign, because they had a good arrangement with Cambridge. The arrangement was that I would train at Norwich and I'd go down twice a week during the week to Cambridge, which meant I didn't have to move or whatever, and play on the match days whenever necessary, and that suited me. And you know, at the time Cambridge were doing quite well, and I think my first game was against Southend, if I remember. And I didn't think we did that well, because in retrospect I think Ron said he thought what he should have done is not played you straight away, but come down and have a look at the setup. Look, get amongst the team and see and augment yourself that way. But I soon learned quickly, you know, the type of football was being played, and what you had to do as a defender is that you didn't mess around too much. You had to, you know, move it quickly, because they were just, the tempo was always quick, and you just had to get used to the fact. But what we did have at that time was good players, young players that were in that team. I mean, playing with Steve Fallon, we slotted in together, you know, seamlessly, really. It just got to, you know, there right away. Bill Baldry at left back, I think, and Brendan Matson at right back. Quite a good line, you know, at the back. And then you had Alan Biley, you had Willie Watson, you know, all these players, Tom Finney, who were decent players and doing well and playing with confidence. And of course, playing that season through, it was, and Ron treated me well because he knew I was a senior player. He respected the fact that I played against Ron when he's at Oxford, and I knew him. We clashed heads a few times in the games, which, you know, he went off because he had a cut eye. I stayed on. No, I always told him about that when I stayed on the pitch. And he treated me well, as I said, and you know, we did win the division that year, which is nice, because that was really saying to you know, Norwich as well, you let me go too early, you know, but we had a good team around us.
Why do you think your style suited Steve Fallon and Steve suited you?
Well, I think Steve wanted to, which was similar at Norwich, because I played with Duncan Forbes, who he wanted to win the ball all the time, go after it all the time. I mean, Steve was a little bit more of a footballer. I mean, Duncan was, you know, hard as nails. He was hard to play against, and I used to pick the pieces up around him, you know, and he used to protect me in that way, and I could read off him. And that similar thing with Steve. He was intelligent enough to do things that we were doing on the pitch that we'd read off each other, which was, you know, which was great. And he was always, you know, there with in a chance of scoring goals as well, which he scored quite a few, you know. But it just, I think that was part of my game, was that I would read off players and read the game and pick up the pieces. And as you're getting older in football, you don't want to use too much energy, so you save your legs by the fact that you're in position before the player plays the ball. You know where it's going, and you read it that well.
Were you consciously a mentor to Steve, because he describes you as his mentor as well as his partner?
Yeah, I think you know, because I would say that having had the experience I had, they would respect that, and they did. And you know, if we talked to each other, it would be during the game or after, and doing things, then taking it from week to week, it would build on the experience. And that understanding, it came quite well. It was quite uncanny, really, because we didn't, when you've not played with a player for you know, a period of time, even in pre-season, you get used to each other and how they play, you know the strengths and weaknesses. We had to learn right away about each other. And I was quite fit at that time. I was still, you know, able to get, you know, balls in the air if I needed, and I get a good leap on me, and you know, I could tackle a person when needed. And I think he read off me as well, which worked ever so well. It was good.
It's good.
Terrific understanding.
Did you have any injuries up to that point, or were you fairly well?
No, I suppose the only injuries I had was at Norwich. That was when I was coming in and out the side because of that reason. I had hamstring, which probably is a common injury from players that are getting, you know, on in age. They tend to muscles give way a little bit easier than when you were younger. If I remember, I said to you, 13 seasons playing without hardly an injury. You got injured, but I think in those days you wanted to play, you didn't want to lose your position, so you went through it. You know, and if you haven't got, I've had broken face, you know, facial injuries. I've had, you know, those sort of things, broken ribs. But you get out and play. You know, I can remember being operated on in midweek for a depressed fracture of my cheekbone when I was at Norwich, and they did it on a Wednesday, and I played on the Saturday with no face mask like they wear these days and things like that, no protection. Mind you, I think I should have had it, because the first time I went for a ball, somebody gave me an elbow, and that was it. I felt a crap inside.
I'm sure your surgeon was delighted.
Oh, but well, he didn't seem any bothered. That did heal itself, no problem.
Yeah, well, actually, you were compared very favourably at the time, certainly by Ron Atkinson with Bobby Moore and with Dave Mackay.
Oh, blimey, really?
Yeah. In my book, Dave Mackay, you couldn't do a lot better.
Not much. I mean, he was
Tough
the
man.
ultimate, wasn't he?
Man.
You know, I played against Dave Mackay at Derby County when he went there. He went from Tottenham to... But he was tough as nails, strong, could read and pass the ball. I mean, to be compared with him, that would be an accolade that really was a great one.
It was as high as it gets.
Yeah, and Bobby Moore, of course, played
Legend.
66 World Cup and did everything.
Now, you obviously were not, you didn't go to Cambridge with the intention of just playing at your time. You've been
No, I still thought I had, years ahead of me in the game because I knew how fit I was, and training at Norwich I was able to judge myself against them as well because I was training with sometimes the senior players, doing the same things as they were, and there wasn't any difference in my fitness then. I always prided myself in the fitness. I was always I liked training. I think you have to be fit to be a footballer. Some people think that, which happens, they've got, a lot of ability to play the game, but they don't work hard enough at the fitness side, so that, when you need to get out of trouble or do something special, you've got to have that fitness. But today, in today's game, I think that is just not heard of, because each individual is trained as an individual rather than as a group, as we used to train. Yeah. But no, it's but then it was a great time. We went through the divisions at Cambridge. We went to the 3rd division the following season, and of course Ron left to go to West Brom.
Yep.
And John Docherty and Paddy Sowden took over, and he brought in 1 or 2 different players. John Cousins, I think, came in. But while I was there with Ron, I was able to help some of the players and help him get players in. Peter Sylvester, people like that, and Roger Hansbury, who were Dougie Evans, people who were ex-Norwich City players and were interested in, coming into the football club. And that was a help to Cambridge as well. These players did a good job for Norwich. Sorry for Cambridge. Yes, and that helped me too in having an insight really into management, because I was to speak with Ron Atkinson, and he used to bring me into his confidence, because when we were at Cambridge, after every game, we used to go into the president's room where you met the team, you met the crowd, which I felt was great, because if they felt you had a bad game, they'd tell you had a bad game, and that's nothing wrong with that, because because when they're telling you had a good game, you can believe them, can't you? And really, we had a really good rapport. He used to take me into the boardroom, and he'd buy he'd be pouring the champagne for everybody, and he would never drink himself, probably wanted to get everyone else talking.
Before we move on to the John Docherty, Paddy Sowden,
you
scored 1 goal for the club.
Yes, and that was at Halifax.
Yeah, was it?
Yeah, it was a very, very windy day. In fact, the 2 goals that were scored, one was scored direct from a corner, and I scored it from inside our own half. A free kick, and it went on the wind, and it just flew into the back of the net. I mean, I think Ron Atkinson laughed his socks off when that went in.
The comment was, I was expecting to get something from a set piece, but this one came totally out of the blue.
Well, it's true. I think I just lumped it into the box, hoping someone would get the head on it, and it flew in the net. But I had scored, a few goals at Norwich, but I didn't start scoring until I went to centre back, and of course you used to fight for corners, this sort of thing. I didn't manage to get many at Cambridge. I was dropping them out the other end, I think.
But at 5'10", you weren't a giant.
No,
even by the standards of those days. Now your average player's 6'4".
Yes, that's right.
Even at Cambridge.
Right. Well, when we used to play against quite tall players, it was difficult because you had to, be able to time your jumping. And I was had a good leap on me. I could do that. But also you could, make to go for a ball and. Centre forward would head it on, you drop off and pick it up. You had to read the game again, a lot more. But No, that probably was the reason I got a few knocks in the head and the face as well, because I had a few cat eyes and this sort of thing, because you just get up to the level you want to and someone brings the head back into you, you know, it's either a broken nose or a cut eye.
Let's talk about Doherty and Sagan. They were two totally different characters, were they not?
Yeah, they were. I mean, John Doherty was full of himself, a bubbly sort of person. Went on to manage at Millwall, and I actually managed against it later on in my career. But John was totally different from Ron as well. You know, he was all, you know, bright, bubbly, and you know, authoritarian in lots of ways. Wanted to I think there's a little person's syndrome where he wanted to prove that he was you know, the boss. Paddy Southern had been chief scout there. I didn't have a lot of dealings with either of them because of the fact that I was travelling up twice a week and playing on Saturdays, other than you know, when we, you know, he was doing a bit of coaching on the days that we were there. But Ron took it, you know, training a lot of the time. But then he became, because he went, they made him manager. He brought in different players, as I said. And we had to get on with it, and I think that we probably, he benefited from the fact that we had success, and that it sort of rumbled on from there, and the players that we had took it on themselves. He kept the players really fit, and did a lot of running, this sort of thing. Not that I agreed with all the sort of training that he was putting on, but you know, this is the way he wanted to do it. And I could see, but at that time for me, that it was coming to the end of the time I was going to be at Cambridge, because maybe I didn't believe in how he was doing things, and I wanted to probably do it myself. And what really happened then was, while I was training at Norwich, John Bond left to go to Manchester City, and Ken Brown took over, and then I was asked at that time would I be interested in taking the youth team at Norwich, you know, coaching. Well, I was getting towards 30, I was 35, and I thought, well, this is an opportunity I can't miss. And I took that opportunity, and you know, I was grateful for Cambridge, because what they said, we let you, they didn't bother, they let me go with no encumbrances whatsoever. And it was a amicable understanding. And I went to, as I said, went to Norwich to do take the youth team, which was great, because that was probably one of the most enjoyable times in my career, in teaching youngsters to play football and to improve them, because I think teaching youngsters, there is a marked improvement in them over the time you have them, and you can feel that you had something to do with that. And lucky enough, in the time that I was there, in 1980, I think it was, we won the FA Youth Cup, which, you know, was a real, for me, it was a culmination of all the hard work that we've done with the youngsters, and a lot of these players went on, well, I say a lot, not in proportion to how many players you have, go on to make top level professional footballers. But Jerry Goss, who scored at Bayern Munich for Norwich, Tony Spearing, and Louis Donoway, who played in the Milk Cup winning side at Norwich, were three of the players who played more than most. But I had Paul Clayton, whose son now plays for Middlesbrough, which he played in midfield. He played for me, and they were a great team. I'll tell you what, we played that season. We lost, I didn't think we lost a game in a season with that young side. And we took the South East Counties League, we won the FA Youth Cup, we won the President's Cup, and you know, we went abroad. I think we lost one game abroad in one of these tournaments, and that was unheard of really in a young side. And it gave me great satisfaction to do that. And then from that, of course, I was moved up the ladder, because I think Mel Machin went to, he did the same, Mel Machin went to Man City, but just before that I was moved to take on the reserves at Norwich. And I took those for a while. Then Mel Machin did go to Man City, because John Bond, I think he got the sack, and Mel Machin took over. That left Ken Brown at Norwich without any coaches, and we were moved up Dave Williams and myself to coach the first team, which I felt was unusual really. The two coaches taking the first team doesn't really, two doesn't go into one, you know. And I felt then that it didn't work. And what happened was the team didn't do very well, the first team, in that first season. And the season before they just won the Milk Cup, and Ken was a very popular person for the crowd and everybody else, rightly so. Yeah. But of course results didn't go our way, and in October he was given the sack and I was asked to take over as caretaker manager. And you know, I thought that was a big step to take at that time, so I was enjoying coaching, of course. I never really set out to become a manager. That wasn't my thoughts at all. In fact, Cambridge United, I did, I think it was Mr. Rushton who was chairman at that time, rang me to ask if I was interested in taking over at Cambridge United. And I said at that time, I didn't think I was ready or right to go, and you know, he did say, you know, it's a challenge, and you know, you should take the challenge, but I knew it wasn't right for me. And I got the opportunity, as I say, as caretaker manager. We were bottom of the league, first division at that time, weren't doing very well. The crowd were anti because they just let Ken Brown sack Ken Brown, and he was well liked, and there was furore in the city, you know, about what happened.